everybody, it's Kenzy Knoxx and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I thought we'd be doing this nice mountainous painting. So let's get started. To begin off with, I've got a few colors on my palette including titanium white, unbleached titanium, cadmium orange hue, burnt sienna, sky blue, cobalt blue, and burnt umber. So add this to your palette. We're going to start off by spritzing down our canvas with some water and then taking our paintbrush and we're just going to spread that water out along the canvas. This will just help even out the paint or help us spread the paint along the surface of the canvas, whether you're working on mixed media paper or a canvas. Using the same 1-inch oval mop brush, I'm going to go ahead and dip into some sky blue and begin painting in the sky, keeping the far left side a little bit darker than the right side as the light from the sun is coming from the right and the left will be more in the shadow. Now I'm going to dip into some titanium white and we're going to start painting in the middle portion of the sky, just lightening up that sky blue just a bit. Grabbing some additional titanium white, I'm going to keep working this paint that's in my paintbrush over to the left side, which is going to be where the sun is coming, or the sun is shining. Next, I'm going to grab my size 14 bristled filbert brush, and I'm going to grab some titanium white, some burnt sienna, and some cadmium orange hue, and create a light shade of this brown orangey shade, and we're going to create some clouds in the sky. So I'm just barely wisping this paint onto the canvas. Strangely, I've never really created clouds this color before, but it adds an earthy touch that I actually kind of like. Adding some more white as we get closer to the sun. We're just going to keep continuing lightening those clouds up just a hair of a shade. Next, I'm going to grab my size 4 flat brush, and I'm going to dip into my cobalt blue, and we're going to go ahead and add in little, this is going to be our mountain, so this is going to be like the shadowed area, so I'm just going to create a little peak over here and another peak right here. Paint this down a little bit, creating that shadowed edge. Then I'm going to take some more cobalt blue and create the shelf line, I guess you could call it, of the mountain right here. Just follow me along. This might be a little confusing at first, but then you'll get it after a while. Create another little peak area here, and then we're going to bring over this little shelf this way, fill that in a little bit. We're just etching in or mapping out our mountains at this point. Grab some of that white and burnt sienna and create the highlighted edge of our mountain now, and the highlighted shelf area. And over here too, this highlighted area. Now you can kind of see the mountains forming. Add some more white and burnt sienna to your palette, and then we're going to create this highlighted area of the mountain on this side. Something's starting to take shape, I think. Grabbing some unbleached titanium white and some titanium white, I'm going to lighten that just a hair more, and create another mountain right over here. Grabbing some burnt umber, we're going to go ahead and create a shadowed region. Next, we're going to grab some burnt sienna, burnt umber, and some titanium white, and we're going to go ahead and add in some darkness to the mountains over here in the shadowed areas. Just follow me along. I promise this will come out looking pretty decent in the end. Grabbing some burnt sienna and some cobalt blue, we're going to create another mountainous region. So just start over on the right side, draw a little peak up there, and then bring that down a little bit. This is going to be closer towards us, so more in the foreground or midground region. Next, we're going to grab some burnt umber, some burnt sienna, and some unbleached titanium, and we're going to create another little hilly area more in the foreground right over here on the left side of the canvas, and then going back to our original shade of cobalt blue and burnt umber, we're going to continue our mountain area. I'm just etching out or mapping in the different hills and mountains that are on this painting. Taking some burnt umber, we're going to go ahead and fill in the hilly area on the left side of the canvas. And once I'm done with that hill, I'm going to continue the hill on the other side, going downwards. So the area that I left blank is going to be a little pathway, so keep that in mind. That path is going to be coming towards us, so just keep that perspective in the back of your head while you're painting in the continuation of the hill going downwards. Next, I'm going to take some burnt sienna and titanium white and fill in the pathway. So just paint this in. Taking some cobalt blue and titanium white, I'm going to go ahead and paint in this leftover area of the mountain. So we're just blocking in each of these sections. We will be fixing them afterwards, so don't worry too much about making sure that they're perfectly filled in or covered. Grabbing a small mop brush, I'm going to go ahead and add my liquid medium. It's a thinning medium or thinning agent. You can also add water to it if you'd like. But grabbing some sky blue with titanium white, we're going to create a little fog layer between the mountains in the background and the mountains in the foreground, or the hill area in the foreground. And so just paint this section in, creating little swirls. You can paint in, fill it in, going horizontally or vertically or whatever way you want, and then create little circles to help transition the mountains into the fog, or the fog into the mountains. Grabbing my size 6 flat brush, I'm going to go ahead and grab some titanium white on the side of it, and we're going to, you can use a palette knife if you're more comfortable with that, but we're just going to create the snow regions on the mountain and use it just like you would a palette knife. This is just an alternate method in case you're not that comfortable with a palette knife, or you just want to create some snow areas real quickly. I like this because it's quick and efficient, and I'm not that great with a palette knife just yet, but I will work on my skills and eventually probably prefer a palette knife, especially if I'm working on a canvas. But go ahead and get some titanium white with some light blue, violet, or cobalt blue, and create the shadowed snowy regions as well, using the same side of the brush technique. Once you're satisfied with the way your mountains look, you can go ahead and rinse off your brush. We're going to dip into some burnt umber with some sap green and create this like earthy green tone, this dark green tone. And we're going to use that same method to patch in some grass on these lower region mountains that are closer towards us. Then we'll take some light olive green and we'll do the same sort of method, creating some highlighted grass regions as well. Grabbing some titanium white with that light olive green shade, we're going to add in some additional highlights to these green fields. Next, grabbing some burnt umber with some of that cobalt blue, we're going to create that gray shade of the mountain and just go over the back areas of the mountain again. Then we're going to rinse off our brush, grab some burnt sienna, and we're just going to patch in some dirt areas too. Add some Indian yellow to your palette, and then we're going to add in some Indian yellow with titanium white to our mountain areas. Next, we're going to create some shrubs. So grabbing some burnt sienna with some cobalt blue, we're going to use our 1-inch oval mop brush, and we're just going to tap, 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 and create some foliage on top of our hill. Create little bushes as well, using the same shade or color, and then create some shadowed areas along the hillside too. We will be adding in various colors of bushes, and they'll be very colorful in nature, and then we'll add in some rocks too. But make sure that you add in this dark shade so that this will be the deepest shade of color that we have, and then we'll lighten it up as we go. Using my size 4 flat brush, I'm going to go ahead and draw in a tree right here. I'm also going to take that same color and create another tree down here on this bottom hill region. And then grabbing some unbleached titanium white and some burnt sienna, I'm going to create a highlighted color and highlight the right side of those trees. I'm then going to take some burnt umber and some cobalt blue and mix that together and create some rocks on the pathway. Once I'm done creating the rocks on the upper portion of the hill, I'm going to go ahead to the lower portion of the hill and add some rocks and boulders down here as well. Add some titanium white to that existing color and create a highlight for your rocks. You can continue adding as many rocks or as few rocks as you'd like. You can continue using your flat brush or switch over to a filbert brush like I did to create these rock formations. Once you've added in all the rocks that you'd like, go ahead and add some ultramarine blue to that color that you have for the rocks and add in some shadow areas. Switching over to my size 2 liner brush or rigger brush, I'm going to take some burnt sienna and some unbleached titanium white, and I'm going to go ahead and add some branches to the trees that we created. Remember to add enough water so that your paint is an inky consistency, or you can add a liquid fluid medium that'll help move the paint along your canvas as well. Go ahead and grab some burnt umber and some cobalt blue, and you can create the darker branches that you need for the shadow regions. Please remember that you can speed up this video or slow it down as much as you'd like through the YouTube control tools, I believe. It's a little gear icon that should be in the upper right hand corner, and you can slow it down or speed it up as much as you need. Continue adding as many or as few branches as you'd like, and then once you're done with this, we can begin on the foliage or the bushes down below. Now that we're done with the tree, I'm going to take my 1-inch oval mop brush, and I'm going to begin mixing in some ultramarine blue and some sap green. And I'm going to create some deep colored foliage down below. Just tapping that foliage in. Continue adding as many bushes or foliage groups as you'd like. And once you're done with the bushes down below, we'll begin adding foliage into the trees up above. Remember to keep the amount of foliage down to a minimum, because we kind of want to see the background behind the trees, but also less is more in a lot of these paintings, and I have a hard time remembering that as well. But on to the next. So grab some sap green and some light olive green, mix those together, and add some highlighted foliage to the trees. And then once you've added your mid-tone, we're going to add some titanium white with some light olive green and create our highlight tone for our trees. So go ahead and add in some highlights to your foliage. Remember not to cover up everything. We do want some of that deeper shade to show through in those mid-tones as well. So we're just adding to it, not covering up the paint that's already on the canvas. Go ahead and wipe the residue off of your brush, or grab a new 1-inch oval mop brush and grab some sky blue and add some foliage down to the bushes down below. Just these 2 bushes, and then some of the little brush areas along the ground. And then grab a new brush or wipe off the residue and grab some Indian yellow and add in that to the foliage. I think we're going to add some titanium white to that Indian yellow after, but yes, add some titanium white to that Indian yellow and add in some foliage to the bushes. And then some of the groups of the bushes down on the ground, as well as some of the bushes in the trees, or the foliage in the trees, I'm sorry. Tap into your Indian yellow and add in some shrubbery on the left side of the hill. And then tap into some titanium white into that Indian yellow and add some highlights to that shrubbery and the bushes that are created with that yellow. Go ahead and grab a new 1-inch oval mop brush or wipe off the residue and add some magenta, quinacridone magenta, as well as some luminous rose and luminous pink to your palette. I'm going to tap in that quinacridone magenta into the shrubbery that we'll be highlighting with some luminous rose, and it'll look really beautiful after. So tapping into some luminous rose, we're going to go ahead and add those highlights into those bushes and little shrubs. Tapping into your titanium white and that luminous rose, go ahead and highlight those shrubberies in the bushes that we added the luminous rose to. I'm really excited right now because I can see how all these colors really complement each other and look really nice together. But going ahead and grabbing some unbleached titanium white, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the trees. And then I'm going to tap into some yellow and add some further highlight. Grabbing some burnt umber, I'm going to go back in and add in that tree shade to our tree. You can use burnt sienna too. Next, grabbing some burnt umber and some cobalt blue, we're going to create a dark shade of brown, almost like a black brown, like our mountains. And we're going to create some shadows on the pathway and some like divots, because obviously our pathway is not perfect. Then go ahead and grab some burnt sienna and titanium white and add some midtones to the pathway as well. Go ahead and rinse off your brush and grab some cobalt blue and add some of our shadowed areas to our rocks with this blue shade. It will really complement the painting. You can also add in some of this cobalt blue to our pathway and add a little burnt umber to that color as well, and add in some further shadows to our path. Going back to my cobalt blue, I'm going back in and shadowing the rocks again. Grabbing some titanium white and some Indian yellow, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that shrubbery again with that yellow shade. Acrylics tend to dry darker than they are when you first put them on, so sometimes you have to add additional highlights to really make them pop. Switching over to a smaller round brush, we're going to go ahead and dip into our luminous opera or fluorescent pink sort of color. We're going to add some beautiful flowery type things to our tree on the right hand side. So you can add some of these pink things, just plop them on that tree, and then we'll go in. We should have actually started with luminous rose or magenta, quinacridone magenta, to create a shadowed layer, but I think I was just a little overzealous right here. We'll go ahead and grab that quinacridone magenta, add a little bit of a shadow to each of these little floral regions. Then you can grab some luminous rose and go ahead and touch into some of those luminous pink areas, which we'll recover with luminous pink or luminous opera once we're done adding a little mid-tone to these floral areas. Continue using your little round brush to add in that luminous rose to all the little flower bushes in the trees until you're fully satisfied with how they look. Then you can go ahead and rinse off your paintbrush, grab some luminous opera, and begin highlighting those floral regions as you wish. I believe I added like 2 or 3 petals to each of these flower bundles just to make them look like they were like maybe little flowers, individual flowers, I guess. Once I was done with the flowers in the trees, I went ahead and added some petals to the ground. And when I did this, I made sure that the petals that were closest to us were larger in size than the petals that were farther away from us, which were smaller in size. But you'll see this as I add more petals to the ground. Adding some titanium white to some luminous opera, I went ahead and highlighted all of the flower bundles in the trees, again sticking with the 2 or 3 petals per flower, and then I also highlighted the flower petals on the ground as well. As I said before, you can see that the petals closest to us are larger in size than the petals farther away from us. But go ahead, rinse off your paintbrush and grab some light permanent green. And I'm just going to add a few little green leaves to each of the little flowers in the trees, just to give them a little something extra. Once you're done with that, rinse that brush off, put it aside, and grab like a size 4 filbert brush and pick up some orange. And I'm just going to add some orange to some of the yellow bushes just to give a little extra color to the painting. Off your paintbrush, grab some ultramarine blue, a little bit of cobalt blue, and some sky blue. Mix that together, and we're just going to add some shadowed regions to the bushes down below that were originally in sky blue, and also the little bushes or shrubbery on the ground as well. Go ahead and rinse off that paintbrush and grab your liner brush and mix up some light permanent green with a little bit of titanium white. And we're going to go ahead and add some grasses to our painting. So make sure that you add a lot of water to your paint, making it an inky consistency. This will be the easiest way for you to use a liner brush. Or if you have a paint medium thinner, that you can use that as well. That works fantastically. I have a liquid one and I love it. And rather than watering down the pigment of the paint, it actually doesn't do that. So you get a colorful line rather than a watered down line, if that makes sense to you. But you can add grasses wherever you feel necessary in your painting. I added it to several areas. Keep in mind about perspective though, the farther away that the grasses are, the smaller or shorter they should be, and the closer they are to us, the longer and thicker they should be. Next, we're going to mix up some of that light green permanent with titanium white and a little bit of Indian yellow to give it an olive green sort of shade. And we're just going to add this to our grasses just to give them a little bit more color and to lighten them up a bit, adding a little more sunshine to them. Next, we're going to take that same color and add a little bit of ultramarine blue to it, just to deepen that shade a bit, because we're going to be adding some grasses in the foreground now. So we're going to start off with the shadowed areas, and then we'll add the highlights on top of them afterwards. Remember that these grasses in the foreground should be longer and thicker than the grasses in the background. Add a little titanium white to your color, and then we're going to go ahead and add in some highlights to these grass regions. And remember to add a little water to your paint so that it is that inky consistency. Sometimes a lot of people think that you need to add more paint to your paintbrush in order to make it flow more, but you really don't. It's actually more water. But now we're going to go ahead and rinse off our paintbrush, add some titanium white to some Indian yellow, and we're going to add some highlights to these grasses. Go ahead and add a little more titanium white to that color, and we're going to go ahead and add some further highlights to these grasses now. Once you're satisfied with your grasses, go ahead and grab some unbleached titanium, and we're just going to add some highlight to the tree branches and to the tree itself as well. Keep in mind that this highlight should be on the far left. You can also use Naples yellow. That's always another option. I meant far right. I'm sorry. Far right, not far left. Apparently I forgot to add in the foliage and the flowers to this little branch down here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Follow the same procedure or steps that I followed before, starting with the luminous rose and then adding the luminous opera and then titanium white and luminous opera to highlight those bushes or flowers. And that about wraps up our painting. So I hope you enjoyed this YouTube tutorial. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I guess until next time, I'll see you guys later. Okay, bye.